What are you reading?
The Dance of Dragons.
What's it about?
It's the story of the fight between Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother Aegon for control of the Seven Kingdoms. Both of them thought they belonged on the Iron Throne. When people started declaring for one of them or the other, their fight divided the kingdoms in two. Brothers fought brothers. Dragons fought dragons. By the time it was over, thousands were dead.
Alright friends, this is Axe Dane from Certain Point of Review, here to give you a primer on the key power players leading up to the start of HBO's new Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. Please keep in mind that while the goal of the video is to discuss events that should all have taken place before the main story of the upcoming show, there could still be spoilers ahead, so consider yourself warned. Today, we are going to be talking about one of the most important and controversial figures in the entire history of Westeros, Rhaenyra Targaryen. To understand the world in which Rhaenyra was born into, it is necessary to briefly delve into the background of the Targaryen dynasty up to that point. Now, a quick point on dating. The world of Game of Thrones uses a dating system based around the year in which the first Targaryen king, Aegon the Conqueror, completed his initial conquest of Westeros, and that date is known as 0 AC, standing for After Conquest. So, for those familiar with the original Game of Thrones series, the famous Robert's Rebellion began in 279 AC, while the show itself starts in 297 AC. The Targaryen dynasty begins with Aegon I's conquest of all of Westeros, save Dorne, in 0 AC. He was aided in this endeavor by his sister wives, Rhaenys and Visenya, and the colossal dragons the three of them rode, Velaryon, Araxes, and Vhagar. Don't forget about Vhagar, he's going to be making an appearance a bit later. Aegon I died in 37 AC, and his reign was followed by the troubled rule of his two sons, the inept King Aenys and the aptly named Maegor the Cruel. The dynasty entered a long golden age, however, under the rule of Aenys' son, King Jaehaerys in 48 AC. Jaehaerys ruled a peaceful and prosperous realm, but was faced with a difficult decision regarding succession, and his only heir, Prince Aemon, died in 92 AC. Now, Aemon had a daughter, Rhaenys, and were she male, she would have automatically been next in line for the throne. But instead, Jaehaerys chose his other son, Rhaenys' uncle, Baelon, as his heir. This did little to address the problem of succession, however, as Baelon himself died in 101 AC, leading Jaehaerys to call a great council to settle the issue of who should be his heir once and for all. This council was a big deal, and all of the great lords of Westeros came together to debate the issue. They finally decided that it would again not be Rhaenys who would be Jaehaerys' heir, but instead Baelon's son, Viserys. Jaehaerys died in 103 AC, and Viserys peacefully assumed the throne. The Great Council had settled the issue of succession at this point, and it had left many in the realm under the distinct impression that it had also permanently established a legal precedent in which the male claim to succession was conclusively superior to any female claim, at least within the same generation. Okay, enough with the background. Rhaenyra is going to enter the stage here in 97 AC, being born to Viserys and his wife Aemma Arryn shortly before Viserys is named heir. King Viserys' rule continued the prosperity of his grandfather, and Rhaenyra was doted upon from the start. In 104 AC, Rhaenyra at age 7 became a dragon rider by claiming the young dragon Syrax. That event, combined with her mother and baby brother's death a year later, prompted Viserys to publicly acclaim Rhaenyra as his one true heir in 105 AC, having all the lords of Westeros swear fealty to her and to uphold her claim. He even gave her the traditional seat of the heir to the Iron Throne, making her Lady of Dragonstone. Remember, this is the same seat that Stannis held in the present timeline. Satisfied, Viserys assumed the matter was settled. But, of course, you can see the potential problem here. At this point, it had only been 4 years since the Great Council gave a ruling which strongly implied that the male line of succession was favored over the female line. Now, in 105 AC, when Viserys proclaimed Rhaenyra as his heir, most lords of Westeros didn't grumble too loudly. Yes, there was the council's verdict, but there were also a couple other factors they had to consider. One, the king had no other children. Yes, he had a brother, but the council hadn't necessarily concluded that a brother's claim came before a daughter's. 2. That very brother of the king, Daemon the Rogue Prince, while a peerless warrior, was strongly disliked by many of the nobles of the realm, so maybe it was not the best idea to agitate for his claim to the throne. And finally, the queen had just died along with Rhaenyra's infant brother, seemingly ending the possibility of another potential male heir. So in the end, even the most conservative of lords in Westeros bowed their head and vowed to King Viserys that they would indeed uphold Rhaenyra's claim to the throne. And that settled the issue of succession in Westeros forever. Just kidding. Viserys was a good man, but perhaps not the wisest. How else can we explain his decision just a year later to marry the beautiful Alicent Hightower, daughter to the then hand of the king Otto Hightower? The Hightowers were a fantastically old and wealthy house, and they had become even more politically prominent in recent years. And while relations between Rhaenyra and her stepmother Alicent started off well, things started to change after Alicent gave birth to Aegon II in 107 AC, Helena in 109, Aemond in 110, and Darien in 114. Suddenly, the realm had 4 new potential heirs to Viserys, and most importantly, 3 of them were male. The calls for Viserys to amend the succession grew louder each and every year. But while Viserys delighted in his new family and lavished affection and attention on Alicent and their children together, if the realm thought that he was going to disinherit Rhaenyra for any of Alicent's children, the realm was very wrong. Instead, Viserys went out of his way to remind everyone that despite his healthy sons by Alicent, Rhaenyra was his one and only heir. After incessant needling on the subject by his own hand and father-in-law, Otto Hightower, Viserys even had Otto removed from his post and sent back to Old Town. Despite the worsening relations with her stepmother, Rhaenyra's childhood was a happy one. As a little girl, she delighted in the intrigue and pageantry of her father's court, and she was immensely popular with the people of Westeros, even leading to her nickname as the Realm's Delight. She had inherited her family's typical Valyrian looks and was described as the most beautiful woman of her age, with luminous skin and her silver gold hair often worn in a long braid, much like her ancestor, the warrior queen Rhaenyra Targaryen. While Rhaenyra could be charming, even early on she was noted as being stubborn and proud, quick to anger, and never one to forget a slight. It was during this time that Rhaenyra formed a close relationship with her uncle, Daemon the Rogue Prince. While unproven, rumors abounded that their relationship may have been a tad inappropriate, which, given the Targaryen feelings about intimacy between blood relations, might not be completely unfounded. Far better attested, however, is the fact that at a young age, Rhaenyra became deeply infatuated with one Sir Criston Cole, a newly minted knight of the Kingsguard. Cole became Rhaenyra's personal shield and protector and always wore her favor during jousts. In 111 AC, when Rhaenyra was 14, a great tournament was held to honor the 5-year anniversary of Viserys' marriage to Queen Alicent. By this time, tensions between the princess and the queen had solidified enough that tangible political power blocks were forming around them. On the day of the tournament, Alicent wore a splendid green dress, but not to be upstaged, Rhaenyra came out in a dramatic black and red dress, evocative of her family's colors, and strongly implying the primacy of her claim to the throne over that of Alicent's sons. The realm now had a name for the power blocks around the two women. Followers of Queen Alicent and supporters of her son's rights to the throne, per the Great Council of 101, were forever after known as the Greens, while followers of Rhaenyra's claim to the throne, per Viserys' public proclamation and the vow the Great Lords made in 105, were known as the Blacks. The ever-increasing bitter rivalry between the Greens and the Blacks is the central drumbeat that will lead to the most devastating war in Westerosi history. In 113 AC, Rhaenyra legally reached the age of majority and took possession of Dragonstone as her seat, and in 114 AC she was wedded to Laenor Velaryon, the son of famous Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Snake, and heir to that powerful house. Now, we don't have the time to fully dive into House Velaryon's history, but their house is about to play a very important role in Rhaenyra's life, so little context is required. The Velaryons were one of the few royal houses in Westeros that shared the Valyrian ancestry of House Targaryen. Perhaps because of this, the two houses were exceedingly close, frequently intermarrying, and with the Velaryons often being in charge of the crown's navy and maritime resources. Because of these points, even though House Velaryon was quite small, they were often considered politically on par with the other great Westerosi houses, Their prestige and power reached even greater heights, however, when the leader of their house, Laenor's father, Corlys the Sea Snake, made a series of daring voyages far across the world and returned home with untold riches. Their prominence as the de facto second family of Westeros was further secured when Corlys was wedded to a Targaryen bride in 90 AC, Rhaenys Targaryen, who, as we mentioned earlier, after being passed over for the throne not once but twice, was forever after known as the Queen That Never Was. Corlys and Rhaenys had twins, Laenor and Laena, and it was into this noble house that Rhaenyra married. As allies, the Velaryons could not be beat. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it is around this time that Criston Cole goes from one of Rhaenyra's greatest supporters to a devoted follower of Queen Alicent and the Greens. Rhaenyra and Laenor's marriage, while not an unhappy one, was not full of romantic bliss, as it is heavily implied that Laenor was in fact gay, and the couple spent most of their time apart. Rhaenyra became far closer to Laenor's sister, Laena, who had recently married her favorite paramour, uncle, Daemon the Rogue Prince. Laenor and Rhaenyra had 3 sons together, Prince Jacaerys, known as Jace, Lucerys, known as Luke, and Joffrey, known as Joff. The parentage of Rhaenyra's children by Laenor was an extremely controversial topic, even at the time. For while Rhaenyra and Laenor both shared the silver-haired looks of their Valyrian ancestors, all 3 of the boys had brown hair. The popular rumor at the time, likely spread by the Greens, but also one still given significant credence even today, is that the boy's real father was Lord Harwin Strong, a rumored lover of the princess. The boys grew up legally recognized by their grandfather, King Viserys, as Rhaenyra's true-born sons, but rumors of their illegitimacy persisted. The Greens assured the world that these rumors would be proven true once the boys were given dragon eggs and they failed to hatch, but the birth of 3 dragons, one for each of the boys, temporarily silenced the Greens. In 120 AC, Laenor and Laena, the Velaryon twins, both died, as did Rhaenyra's rumored lover, Harwin Strong. Rhaenyra, according to many, proved old rumors correct when she secretly married her uncle Daemon. This news caused an extraordinary scandal at court, but Viserys, always unable to stay angry with his daughter for long, eventually forgave both her and his brother. Rhaenyra and Daemon would have 2 more sons, Aegon III and Viserys II, both, unhelpfully, possessing silver blonde hair. Over the next few years, Rhaenyra and the Blacks consolidated their power base, as did Alicent and her Greens, who increasingly agitated for Alicent's son, Aegon II's ascension to the throne upon Viserys' death. On paper, Rhaenyra looked to be in the far better position. She had the public and unwavering support of her father, the reigning and popular king. She had close ties with her mother's house, House Arryn, and could rely on the immensely powerful House Velaryon, who at least publicly had a member of their own family in line for the throne in Rhaenyra's eldest son, Jace. She also was married to Daemon Targaryen, almost unanimously acclaimed as the greatest warrior of the era. To top off all of this, in terms of dragon power, Rhaenyra and her Blacks could claim a greater number of dragon riders and dragons than the Greens, though the largest and most powerful dragon left alive, Vhagar, was ridden by Aemon Targaryen, Queen Alicent's second son, and to no one's surprise, a devoted Green. Rhaenyra, now older and deeply anxious about the future of her family, waits out the final few years of her father's reign on Dragonstone, knowing that every year that passes, her boys grow older, more powerful, and their claims more entrenched. With that said, King Viserys' health is fading fast, and every day there seems to be more Greens and fewer Blacks at the royal court in King's Landing. His death will be the spark that sets the continent on fire.
Hey guys, thanks for watching our first character primer for the upcoming House of the Dragon. Before I say anything else, we want to thank you all for the incredible support on our Boba Fett video essay. The channel has grown a lot since we posted that video, and we are now over 1,000 subs, which is far more than we expected to get in such a short time. While we have plans to make more videos like the Boba essay, those take a while to write, and in the meantime, we thought it'd be cool to make these character primers for anyone trying to brush up on their lore before House of the Dragon airs. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff helps us out, and we'll catch you next time.